Downfall is a point-and-click horror game, and it's not for everyone. You're not running and hiding from a monster, which can make a horror game exciting and fun. Instead, this game focuses on being disturbing, violent, and just a generally unpleasant place to be, which I think is a horror in a more true sense of the word. I'll tell you right now that I think this game is good, but if you're playing it expecting to have a good time just because it's a game, and games need to be fun, then you're gonna hate it. You play as a character by the name of Joe Davis. You're going on vacation with your wife Ivy when she starts talking crazy, and you have to stop at a hotel in a small town to find a doctor. The next morning, the whole world has gone crazy, and Ivy has been kidnapped by the woman who lives in the hotel room next door, Sophie, and she plans on eating Ivy. You soon learn that in order to find Sophie, you have to murder 4 of her memories, which show up in various places in the hotel, appearing as flesh and blood, younger versions of Sophie. And once again, I'll remind you that this game isn't for everyone. It's depressing and has a lot of violence, gore, nudity, and swearing, and contains difficult subject matters like eating disorders and suicide. If any game is deserving of a mature rating, it's this one. It's nice to see a game that doesn't pull its punches in order to appeal to everyone, but at times it seems like it's just adding things like this to seem edgy. Like maybe if the characters say fuck a lot, then people will think it's mature and take it seriously, when really it starts to have the opposite effect. It tries to have a gritty realism in Joe's character while putting him in an over-the-top disturbing world to explore Sophie's character, but at times it gets pushed too far and goes to a grim dark extreme. The gameplay is very good compared to a lot of point-and-click horror games that I played. The puzzles maintain their sense of logic even in the strange hell that you spend the game in. It makes the game very easy for a point-and-click, but I'd much rather have a puzzle that's easy because it makes sense than a puzzle that's hard because you can't read the mind of the developer. The biggest obstacles in the puzzles came from a few pixel hunts and a few arbitrary restrictions on where you can go. You start off not being able to go to the higher floors of the hotel for no apparent reason, but at some point Joe just decides that he can go there. Then for a while you can't go to the garden outside the hotel or towards the nearby city, but once again you're just allowed to go there after you complete some unrelated task. But despite this railroading, the game gives you a lot of freedom when it comes to the order that you do things. Looking back on one of the puzzles I completed near the end of the game, I had the tools needed to solve the puzzle very early on, but there was a whole game of other things to do while I figured out the solution. The worst part of the game is this other character, Agnes, who is introduced about halfway through. Joe falls into a trap, which is the most random and confusing part of the game, and ends up helpless underground with a couple of corpses. Then it cuts to Agnes, who is told by the hallucination of a rock star that she needs to help Joe. If there's a more contrived way of getting 2 unrelated characters to team up, I'd love to hear it. But anyway, she gets a shovel and digs Joe out of the ground, and the 2 team up. At first, I thought this was going to be a great idea. I thought a new character would have a different perspective on what's going on in the hotel, so I went around looking at everything again, hoping Agnes would comment on things and give some insight on the puzzles I was having trouble with. But Agnes doesn't say much at all. She only really speaks up in rooms with a lot of corpses in them, but she never says anything useful. It seems like her character only exists to be the solution to a puzzle where you have to hit 2 switches at the same time. But that puzzle only leads to a single new room that doesn't even have anything interesting in it. All of the other characters are well thought out, they each have their own motivations and tie into the story crucially. But Agnes just ends up being a key that follows you around for the rest of the game. I was very disappointed that the character was so useless, especially with the long introduction that it gives her, and she's simply more likable than any other character in the game. I really enjoyed this game, and it's actually getting a remake later this year. That's 2015 for anyone watching this in the future, and it really does deserve a remake. The original is riddled with bugs. I had bugs where the text moved at an unreadable pace, bugs where I couldn't use any of my items anymore, and at one point I even cloned my shotgun somehow. I place the blame of these bugs more on the engine than the developer, but a remake should fix the problems regardless. Unfortunately, it looks like the remake will be replacing the hand-drawn aesthetic with 3D environments, which is cool, but I thought the art style was one of the game's best features. If there are any other noteworthy changes in the remake, I'll be sure to revisit it when it comes out.